Hi, church. Pastor Jeff here with another Trinity check-in. Last Sunday, we finished the Sacred Assumption series, and it was kind of a big deal. At least it was for me, and I think for a lot of you. You all are wonderful about commenting on sermons, but I think I've gotten more with this series than I have for a while. One of my goals was to make you all think, and I think that certainly happened. And I appreciate everything that I've heard. I've heard positive comments. I've heard comments that people needed a way to put something into words that they've thought or believed for a long time. And I've heard some disagreement in spots. And to be honest, I was hoping for that because I was pushing the edge, going places where I knew not everybody would agree. And I think that's healthy. In fact, I think that's part of being a United Methodist is disagreeing well. I could go on about that for a while, but that might be a topic for another time. Google Wesleyan Quadrilateral if you really want to know more there. That said, I wanted to revisit why we were doing the series in the first place, why I wanted to do it in the first place, and I wanted to share with you my journey and kind of what I've been noticing during this series. So one of the reasons for doing the series is my own belief that it feels like I'm going into big words here, but it's how my brain works. The theological right, the conservatives, whether it be evangelicals or by fundamentalists or whatever name you want to use, talk about the Bible so much, and I believe they get that wrong in a lot of places, as I've communicated during the series. However, the center-left church doesn't talk about the Bible very much, and I think part of that's fear, because we don't want to sound like them, and I really don't like us versus them thinking. We're all well-intentioned in trying to get to know God here, but part of the goal of the series for me was reclaiming the Bible for the center-left and for the mainline church to remind us of why the Bible matters and why sometimes when we dig deep we can find deeper lessons. And I think that was effective. At least it was for me. A lot of things that I've thought since seminary or things that I've done a lot of reading on, but don't always have a good place to share with you all, came out during this series, and it was good for me to be able to share it, and I think that's where a lot of your comments have come from, and so I'm very glad for that. But let me tell you about my journey. So, not surprisingly, I knew what I was going to say in each of the sermons before we started, right? So there weren't any surprises for me because I was the one writing it, though you'd be surprised how often my own sermons do surprise me. What I noticed during this series, though, is I became more aware of just how much church hurt there is in the world. Now, do you know what I mean by church hurt? Sometimes it goes far enough to be called religious trauma, honest to goodness harm that has been done by bad beliefs in the church, by Christians behaving badly, whatever it may happen to be. And I don't even mean abuse that we've heard so many stories of in the last decade or two. I mean things like where a church's refusal to accept women or a refusal to accept homosexuality or LGBTQ, their judgment of it. I've heard stories even in our own community in recent times from other churches that have flat out been trauma, harm done because of bad beliefs, what I certainly believe to be bad beliefs and what there is evidence of. Now, I've been aware of things like that for a long time. I've talked to people. I was part of an evangelical church myself for a while I was growing up and got to see some of what that dynamic is like, and that's helped me to enter into a lot of conversations. But while doing this series, some of the places I hang out online, you oftentimes encounter people who aren't familiar with the church and have a bad attitude about it. And I've been reading those with a different lens because of this series. Something about the juxtaposition of talking about it on Sunday and then going like on the Lincoln subreddit. That's one of the ones I'm referring to, and hearing some of the things that are said and realizing just how many people there are in this world that have what I believe to be a very warped idea of who God is because of some of these bad beliefs about women, LGBTQ, hell, a God that could impose an eternal damnation. How do you love a God like that? These types of questions have caused a great deal of harm. And I'm more aware of that than I was when this series started. And honestly, it kind of lights a fire under me because the God I know is good. The God I know is a God that everyone, I believe, would be better off for knowing. Now, that said, I'm not going to go out there and start pushing it down people's throats because of all the harm that's been done. There have even been times where I've been afraid to comment online, afraid to say that I'm a pastor for fear nobody will listen to me. I mean, that's kind of the place we are because of how much church hurt there is in the world. But what we can do is be better ourselves. What we can do is dig in to respect what God has given us, to try to be a new kind of Christian, to try to be the best kind of Christian that we can, to always look at what it is that we believe and always be improving it. And to me, that's exactly what we see in John Wesley, our denomination's founder. It really does go back to that for me. Shoot, it's what we saw in Jesus. He spent most of his times hanging out with the sinners, the tax collectors, with those who had been through horrible things, with the demon-possessed. Probably most of that was mental illness, as we'd say today. That's who Jesus spent his time with, and he had the most critical words for those whose ways were most set in the church. Well, it wasn't called the church yet. It was the religious leaders of the day. But I think that's the example that we need to follow. And I know this series did that for me, and I hope it does for you too. If you missed any of it, we made a YouTube playlist on our the church's YouTube channel. It is ridiculously hard to find things by searching YouTube, but if you go to our website and go to the worship archive, the sermon archive, you'll find it there. If you're watching this video through the email, I'm going to put a link to the playlist there, and you'll see all the sermons in the series. If you want to go deeper, there's growth group questions on our website. And of course, conversation, because all of this shouldn't be one person talking and everybody else listening, as happens in sermons. There's a place for that. It's a conversation starter. It's a thinking starter. But we need to talk back and forth. So tonight, not by coincidence, in this very room, we are going to start Big Questions with Pastor Jeff. It's one of our Ignite classes, and I'm guessing that we're going to be talking about some of the topics in the series, but you know what? Whatever questions you guys bring, we will talk about it. And I am prepared. Probably not as prepared as for some of the questions we'll get, but you know what? That's the good part about it. And I can't wait to see who all comes. I can't wait to see what kinds of conversations we have. I'm looking forward to it. That starts tonight at 6 and is every Wednesday for the next 5 Wednesdays. It's something like that. You can look at the calendar and we'll communicated. I can never remember off the top of my head. Of course, pub theology also going on. Really good conversation happening there. I heard great things from last week's. I know that'll be the case again. That's down the hill at Catalyst in the Village Gardens area down there, the one that's attached to Hero 88. And then Jen Springer has the class, It Is Well With My Soul. I know some people that are signed up for Big Questions went to her class last week and really liked it. So we'll see where you go this week. If I were you, I'd go to Jen's. I've even seen our own Amy Holland out walking this week because Jen gave them homework of walking 30 minutes every day, and I happened to see her on the street. So she's been doing hers. I hope the rest of you have too. Come tonight. It'll be great. Also, don't forget Trunk or Treat this Sunday. It is going to be a wild time. Of course, we have lots of trunks signed up. We've got a haunted house. It's not too scary, just a little spooky, right? But fun for the kids. We're going to have hot dogs in Spirit Hall. I don't know. I think the last couple of years we've had 800 people through here in 2 hours. It's been incredible. People who aren't comfortable around church get just a little bit of seeing how welcoming a church can be and the good kind of environment we can offer. And you know what? Trunk or Treat, it's the events like that and our Easter egg hunt and Christmas Eve that visitors are more likely to come to. Perhaps that does more to counter the church hurt in the world than anything else. But more than any of that, I hope you all are sensitive, and I hope you all live in the right kind of way, because that's what begins to heal. That's what begins to help people discover what we see. All right. It's good to talk to you, Church. I'd love to hear more from you. I'd love to hear more about what the series did in you. And I hope that you will continue on the journey as all of us. See you soon, Church.